and welcome to the Teaching Together podcast, where we celebrate and share the glows and grows of teacher life. I'm Sierra.
And I'm Grace.
Well, it has been a while, and maybe this is even the first time that you're joining us, but every episode we like to start with sharing a glow or a grow from our teacher lives. So I'm going to ask you, Grace, what is your glow or grow to share with us today?
Well, welcome, first of all, if this is the first episode you're ever hearing of us. We are so delighted that you've chosen to spend your drive or chore day with us or whatever else you're doing. So at the time of recording, my school's just completed our first week with students. Is that true of you, Sierra?
I've done two.
Okay, so I was very, very lucky. I got a full week of pupil-free days, which is very exciting. And so I've just had a full week of students. I have moved from kindergarten to year 2, which feels like a huge jump. And I am adjusting to lots of things that are different because even though the end of kindergarten to the start of year 2 is really only one calendar year, they grow up so much. But I think a glow in that regard is that I'm teaching, I think, 7 students that I taught in my very first ever class in 2024, because this is only my 3rd year teaching. And nearly all of the parents of those students have found me at some point at lines or whatever and said, "We are so happy that you're our child's teacher again. Like, we were so excited when we found out." And it's been really validating. It's been really positive. I mean, we always say at my school that our validation does not come from our students, and it shouldn't, because we're the adult, and they are our students and they are in our care. But it is really nice to know that they care about the relationship that we formed over a whole year of being in the same class. So that has been just lovely to jump in to a whole new classroom and a whole new building, but with students that I already know, which has been just fantastic. And I think my grow is I still feel a bit frazzled and just a bit scattered, even though I've got, we're going to talk about later on, sizzle for later, we're going to talk about some different things that are working for us at the moment. I have things that work in terms of keeping myself organized and all that fun stuff, but I feel like I can't get a grip on the big picture. I feel like I can tick off a to-do list, but yeah, looking at like the whole term or even just the next couple of weeks, I just have no idea when anything is due or what my responsibilities are or what I need to do. So I just feel a bit frazzled at the moment. But this whole episode is hopefully going to equip not just me, but all of you with some strategies, spoiler, for how to keep ourselves organized. And so hopefully by the end of this episode, I'll feel less frazzled. Oh, other thing, it's also a glow. Sorry, I'm taking up so much time, but I am mentoring an intern teacher at my school, which is basically like a placement, except this is not a placement through this person's university. It's through our organization of local schools. So it's in addition to her actual placements, and she gets paid for the 2 days she's at work. But I'm basically like a supervisor. And I am only starting my 3rd year of teaching. And I literally said to my deputy principal, "Are you sure? Like, are you sure?" And then I cried as if someone was asking me to be in their bridal party. It was a whole thing. Anyway, and it has also highlighted to me how frazzled and disorganized I am, because I feel, poor thing, I just info dump on her and go, "This is everything you need to know." And she's so great. Hi, Talia. I'm going to make you listen to this episode. But I would love to be more organized for her sake as well as my own. Full stop. End of glows and grows. Sierra, what about you?
There are so many things that go through my mind at the start of every school year, things that I want to do differently, things that I want to do better, things that I'm excited about. So there's probably too many to reflect on right now. But I think I would just say I'm starting the year with, grows, I think definitely just around organization, just getting my room organized and consistent. I feel like I forever have like one table of the workshop that's just out of action, because it's like, oh, that's the table where I started organizing something on, but then the bell went and then the next lot of kids have come through and I've just had to sort of reduce the number of tables that are accessible. I have plenty of room in the classroom. Probably one more table than is necessary, but it would just be really nice to have, you know how when you're at home and you just get so much clarity and satisfaction from having clear surfaces?
Yes.
I would just really like my classroom to also have clear surfaces. So I'm slowly, bit by bit, reorganizing a few things and trying to find homes for things and homes that make sense based on their frequency of accessibility.
Yes.
But yeah, and I just, every year I think I've got to implement a better end of lesson cleanup routine to just avoid kind of the stress and chaos and the, oh my goodness, they've all walked out the door and there's still a million things on the tables. And now let me just quickly consolidate them all into one corner of the room so that I'm not in the way of the next person who's coming in here.
When you literally have 20 plus people who could all pick up one thing.
One thing,
and
literally.
If we ask them to do that,
yes,
hopefully some of them would do so.
Absolutely, a goal and a grow for this year is to have a cleanup routine that actually means we finish and I have a moment to thank the class or end my lesson properly before the, said 25 12-year-olds march out the door and the next 25 13-year-olds march in the door. Well, it is helpful for us to be thinking about our routines because it is the start of the year, which I think is a natural time for us to think about what we can be doing to make our lives easier as teachers. And it's why we've chosen today to talk about systems and routines, not in a way to kind of boost your productivity and hustle your way along through the year, but to actually think about how do we make being a teacher sustainable. There's all sorts of data and stats out there about the teacher shortage and the teacher workforce. AITSL released kind of a bit of an overview of this workforce data, and based on the data that was collected in 2022, only 6% of teachers had reported being in the profession for 40 years or more. Now, that's obviously a long time, and there's still a decent chunk of people who had been in the profession for, 10 to 20 years. But we know that there's a lot of talk at the moment about how early career teachers are kind of leaving the profession in droves. And Grace and I have spoken before about how we do actually want to be teachers for a long time. We're not just trying to beat the statistic and, make it to 5 years or 10 years and then leave. There's so much that can be done, and we're so passionate and really feel like this is where we want to be, that we want to have routines and systems and things in place that actually make it sustainable for us to do this long term. I think there's lots of people who would start out in this profession not with the expectation of leaving quickly.
Yeah, you don't study for 4 years at uni and do all these placements and make no money by working full time to do something for a year and then go, I'm going to quit.
Yeah, but it happens.
And it's so disheartening to hear that it does happen, which is why we really like doing this podcast, because we quite enjoy our jobs and we want to spread that joy with everybody else.
But also acknowledge the challenges and the grows, and that's why we talk about those things as well, because it's not always sunshine and rainbows. But there are things that we can be doing to take care of ourselves before we get to the point where we feel like, man, this is just all too much and I have to leave. So that is the direction that we're heading for this episode today. But of course, first, it's time for tea. Contrary to the teapot sound that you have just heard, we have not, in fact, poured ourselves a hot cup of tea.
Because it's about 35 degrees at the moment, and Sierra is still renovating her house. Still, poor thing. And we're sitting in an unair-conditioned room. And
my apologies.
Look, it's more comfortable than it could be. My puppy right now, also I got a puppy in the holidays, how exciting. He's currently in aircon comfort in my house. So Sierra has done something that is so out of the ordinary for me as a tea drinker. Tell us, Sierra, what have you done?
Well, one of my favorite teas from the tea centre is called a pina colada tea. but I just couldn't bear to bring myself to have a hot drink today. So I prepped it a couple of hours ago and have popped it in the fridge, and we are drinking iced pina colada teas, which I think is highly appropriate on this day.
I actually think this is the first time I've had proper iced tea,
Like brewed tea.
like brewed tea from like tea leaves that has then been chilled. And I'm enjoying the experience.
It's really nice.
I mean, my brain was telling me that it was going to be fizzy because all of the cold drinks except for water that I have are fizzy. And this obviously was not. But I really enjoy it, and I am going to possibly seek out some of my hidden fruity teas in the back of my cupboard and maybe ice them while we still have summer.
Yeah. So you got to think ahead because it still needs to be brewed in boiling water.
Yes.
But yeah, I was proud of myself for thinking that many steps forward today.
I was proud of you too. It's been great. I'm enjoying the fruits of your labor.
Thank you. Anyway, let's get stuck into it. One of the things that I think is really important to distinguish between at this point in the episode is that we're going to be talking both about systems and routines. And this is actually going to make up a bit of a theme for us over the coming weeks. And I hadn't ever really, I think, consciously considered what the difference between a system and a routine is until I came to thinking about this episode. But basically, at least for the context of this, when we're talking about systems, we're thinking about big picture systems, and it could be things that are like school-wide, or it could be still for you as an individual, but something that helps you with like a much broader aspect of your job. It could be your storage systems. It could be the way that you systematically organize all your resources in your drive. It could be how you organize your classroom, those sorts of things. Whereas a routine is kind of the habitual implementation of the components of that system.
I understand. Because in my head, they were like synonyms. I was like, a system and a routine, they're kind of the same thing.
Yeah. But there's actually a really helpful resource that we'll link to that was put out by the Victorian Department of Education that talks about procedures and routines, and how procedures are even the broken down, like almost the verbs that are needed to be carried out within the routine. So there's even like another kind of subcategory. If you've got like your morning routine, for example, that happens in your classroom, there's like multiple different procedures that need to be executed or carried out for that routine as a whole to function. And those are the little things that get practiced to make sure that the whole routine can be practiced. And then often our whole routines make up our broader classroom management systems or something like that.
Yes. Okay. Yes. I understand because you are an excellent teacher and explain that very clearly.
Oh, thank you. But I guess I am really bad at these. I think you're probably a lot better. But I also think maybe being a primary teacher lends itself to being better at having routines. I don't know. I think when I hear about some of the things that you do in your classroom, I feel like, oh, I would love to do that. But it's so challenging when you've got different groups of people in and out of your space all day, and you're maybe operating in different spaces all day. Thankfully, I have like all but one of my classes in the same room this year. So I think that's going to be helpful, but it's still hard. And when I was first teaching, I was insistent on doing these like little campfire sessions. I think when we spoke about routines way back at the start, when we, like one of our very first episodes, we were talking about campfires and watering holes.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can see the Instagram graphic in my head.
I can see the pictures. But I really wanted this little campfire thing because my teacher used to do this with us in the workshop, where we'd come in for our technology lesson, and all of us, every lesson without fail, it was actually a really good routine where we would come in, we'd put our books down, and then we'd grab the stool from whichever workbench we were going to be working at, and we'd bring it around his bench, which was kind of at the front and center of the room, and he'd make us sort of sit in a bit of a horseshoe shape, and we'd talk about where we're at in our projects and kind of what the next steps are. And I loved those as a kid. I felt like in a technology classroom, I don't know, things get so big and loud and crazy and chaotic that I think sometimes it can be hard to get much of your teacher's attention. And I just really loved those little maybe 5 to 15-minute sessions, depending on how much there was to talk about, where I actually felt like he was present with all of us and explaining things, and we could ask questions without feeling like, you've got to go track them down from the other side of the room. And I really wanted to set a routine like that. And I tried for so long with my classes, but it was actually just not working. It was something that in my mind, I felt like it would be good to do. And it was something that I wanted, but it wasn't carrying out what my kids needed. And actually the physical arrangement of my workshops is not the same as the classrooms that I grew up in. And so it was actually very awkward and squishy to do that kind of everybody come into the center of the room. So I just had to let go of that because it was actually not achieving what it needed to achieve. But I'm not sure that, I think maybe as a result of kind of letting go of that, I haven't really worked very hard at building alternative routines for how I maybe start and finish my lessons. And like I said before, I feel like I often miss the end of my lesson because I think I've got 5 minutes more than I usually do.
That's so stressful. That is a recipe for befrazzlement.
It is. So I guess our whole episode is meant to be about avoiding befrazzlement and having actual good systems and routines, because if we're constantly in a state of frazzle, we're not going to find this sustainable long term.
Yeah. I mean, well, what you were saying about the nature of difference between primary and high school classrooms, it is so true. I have the same kids in the same classroom 99% of the day. And sometimes we go out to the playground to do PE and then we go back to our classroom. And I love that fact because everything can stay in the one spot. No one else is going to come in and accidentally move something or put it back incorrectly because I'm not sharing a room with anyone. I know where everything is. My students ideally know where everything is, and we can all have some ownership, which is what I really like. And my goal from moving to kindergarten to year 2 this year is to create some more student-centered routines that help them to run the classroom. Yes, because they're just that little bit older, and I've definitely got some eager beaver students who love, knowing all things and really want to tell me what they know, which is fantastic. And I know that they'll be capable of taking things and running with it. But yeah, I think that even in my limited experience, I've already had moments of thinking, I'm barely even treading water here. Like, this system is not working, but I don't know what to do about it.
Yes. And then so sometimes we'll just stick with a system or a routine that we've built because that's kind of all there is. And I certainly find as a teacher that we are time poor, which is why we need good systems in place. But sometimes it's actually really hard. We can acknowledge and identify when a system or a routine isn't working, but sometimes it's too hard or too time consuming to come up with an alternative.
Exactly. You don't want to spend your whole Saturday going, okay, how am I going to redo everything in my classroom? And also trying to redo everything all at once is probably a recipe for befrazzlement as well. And yeah, I find, I was talking about this off pod, if you will, that
I will.
that I'm good at the details. Or was I talking about this on pod? Look, I'm so blurry. I don't even know. But like, my big picture thinking is not a strength. And so I'm quite good at ticking off a to-do list and then not really knowing where I'm sitting in the grand scheme of the term. And I think that was on pod. Lol. It's been, 10 minutes and I've already forgotten? Well, listeners, you'll be knowing right now going, oh, Grace and Sierra. Anyway, yes. So I get really, I literally feel my brain getting fuzzy when it's about all the big picture stuff and how my classroom ecosystem as a whole is functioning and where we sit in the whole school and all the things I have to get done and blah, blah, blah. But I'm better at focusing on the details. So I can make a great to-do list, but I need to make sure that the things on that to-do list are sitting reasonably within this big picture of I'm a teacher in a school and I have, responsibilities to other people and to Nessa and all that, and I have to get things done. And so I'm realizing that there are a few things that I was doing that were survivable and were things that I'd seen on Instagram or whatever. And when I was, even more of a baby teacher than I am now, I had no clue. And so I was like, I'll just grab that because that looks fun and it looks aesthetic and, my desk looks neat and stuff. But am I using it? Absolutely not.
I just have to intervene here for a moment because I was talking to my class this week about how one of my pet peeves is when people say that just looks so aesthetic.
Whoopsies.
As a design teacher, we talk about aesthetics a lot. But saying that something looks aesthetic is not describing anything because it's not actually a suitable substitute for it looks pretty.
No, you need to say it looks aesthetically pleasing.
Well, but aesthetically pleasing is
still fake.
It's relative to the audience.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Literally. So I always give my class the example of if you were going backpack shopping for a new school backpack at the start of the year, and as teenagers they might think, oh, this bag looks really cool, and it might just be I don't know, a black linen kind of canvas type bag with cool buckles on it, or it might be a Nike bag or something like that. But their younger sibling who's choosing their bag for kindergarten is going to choose the bluey bag. And it's not that any of them don't look aesthetic, it's that they all have different audiences that they're trying to appeal to. There you go.
I understand, and I will never make that mistake in your presence again. Look, as the grammar Nazi,
the teacher aesthetic, maybe
the teacher aesthetic. That's
the colourful drawers and it is.
But aesthetic, yeah. Look, as the grammar Nazi on this podcast, I understand where you're coming from. But I reckon we can move on to thinking about how things can look organised and look beautifully arranged and look Instagram appropriate, but be completely unsustainable. And honestly, for me, this was more my paper planner, which was gorgeous. And I was so excited to be able to finally have one that I could populate with actual things because I was really teaching.
Because they're so aesthetic.
They are so aesthetic. And, just lots of research of what was the best one and the layout and blah, 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 blah. I have I've had 2 full years of experience, so many, but I quickly realized that my paper planner needed to be abandoned. And I actually realize now that I talk about Planboard all the time because it's fantastic, but I started using it in September of my first year of teaching, so September 2024, and I've used it consistently to this day and use it now still, and actually got someone else on my staff onto it.
Woo!
Because he had forgotten. Actually, this is our mutual friend Matt. Hi Matt. He had forgotten to
put it in an
order because our wonderful school does say that if you buy these specific planners from this brand, they'll pay for it. He had forgotten to order his, and he was like, "Oh, I'm scrambling. Grace, what do you use?" Because I think I don't know when I told him about it. Anyway, and he did say last week, "Grace, I have to show you what I've set up because it looks really cool." And I haven't found a moment, obviously, because when do we have time to actually talk to him about it? But that was really exciting. But I thought that the process of writing something down would slow me down and give me a bit of a break from just always being on the computer and being a bit more mindful and blah, 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 which doesn't work. I have just actually realized that as much as I love paper and as a bibliophile, love the written word, I actually can't rely on it to function. I need my to-do list on my easily accessible on my phone or my laptop. And I can't commit to a paper planner, which is so devastating. But
it is devastating. I bought some very pretty paper planners when I first started, and tried all sorts of different spiral bound and this and that and the other and things that you can insert your own pages into and whatever. And it was just too hard. And then I'd create more work for myself because I'd go backwards and I'd like backfill in things that I missed.
Yes.
And then I'm like, why?
Who's ever going to look at it ever again?
Look at this. Planners are not what they used to be in relation to like teaching documents. So no one cares really whether I missed all of week 1, but it created work for me and then I'd feel stressed about not having a consistent thing.
Yeah. And I also wanted to be that teacher that has all these these beautiful PowerPoint slides for every lesson. And I thought in theory that would help me feel a little bit less frazzled, because if I'd forgotten in the moment what the next thing was that I wanted to say, I just look at the PowerPoint. There it is. Everyone can see it, blah, blah, blah. Being on kindergarten meant that I couldn't really write anything on there that was for the students. It would basically have been for me.
Yes, true. It's more like your own prompt through the lesson.
So I'm not going to be setting up any task prompts on there for them because it's largely verbal and through images. And so that actually created more of a workload because I had to think about how I could say what I needed to say in an image format. And then was like, well, this is pointless. I'm not going to do this. Which then takes me back to Planboard, and not only do I get a school laptop, I also have been very blessed to have a school iPad, which I was a bit like, we're not an Apple school. I don't know why we need an iPad. But first of all, it's great for taking photos of students and not having them on my personal device. Fantastic.
Smart.
Yes. And I pretty much use it as my planner when I'm teaching a lesson, because I have my laptop connected to the board so students can see what I need them to see for the lesson or whatever, which is not a PowerPoint. And then I have Planboard open on my internet browser on the iPad instead of printing out all my lesson plans, which is part of the reason why I don't have a paper planner, is because I don't want to have, where do I put it? I have to put it somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I don't need to print out these PDFs of my digital lesson plans because they're all there on the iPad, and I feel less frazzled. And yeah, I know that I can plan that in a way that is going to make sense in the lesson. If I lose my train of thought, I just go, I'm just going to have to quickly look at this. Done. Great. It's actually working really well. I started using, we only got the iPads, I think second semester last year. And I didn't actually click that is something I could do with the iPad for a while, but I've started doing it week 1 of term 1. And yeah, that is working for me. And
I love that that's just capitalizing on things that you're already doing. Like if you are already sort of typing up a bit of a lesson scaffold and you are already using a digital planner, then you're not having to create a third resource for just the sake of prompting you through your own lesson.
Yes. Yes.
You've already got it there, actually.
I don't need to do it again.
Yeah.
And I'm still at that point in my career when I'm not confident enough to just wing it. Even though I've planned the lesson, I still find it really helpful to maybe have a scripted line that I'm going to start with just to get me going, or to know these are the steps that need to follow, because, I do get I keep saying frazzled, a bit flustered. I get too excited when I'm in the classroom. I honestly get excited and do things out of order.
So you're not the only person in the classroom.
Correct.
Like other things can happen. Like there's 20 at least other humans in the room who could throw something else at you, or you're not there in a vacuum teaching your perfectly prepared lesson. So it's perfectly understandable that you might lose your train of thought or get sidetracked if 3 people ask you simultaneously to get a tissue and to go to the toilet and to get their water bottle.
Yeah, if there's a student who has to come to the door from another class, or if the classroom phone rings, I've completely forgotten what I was about to say.
Yes.
The whole lesson might as well never have happened because I'm not there. But yeah, I think I have officially said goodbye to paper planners. See you later. I'm so sorry, paper planners, and anyone who's bought me one, or paper notebooks. But is there anything specific that you've had to let go of, Sierra?
Well, I must actually say that I've returned to a paper book this year, but not a teacher planner. So I bought myself a 2026 student planner. I don't know if do you know Bespoke Letterpress down in
Do I?
So they had a little stall at this design market I went to, and I was having a look through their planners, and I actually loved their student planners that are like for uni students.
Oh, yeah.
And it's still got it's got a day. It's dated, and it's like a 1 week spread.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of it being divided into like periods or whatever, it's just a checklist for each day.
Ah.
So, but then it's also got like sort of school-ish things because it's for a student, but I can use that for myself as a teacher. And it's got a monthly overview calendar and a few other bits and pieces in it. Anyway, I've actually found it really helpful so far to just write, okay, what are my to-dos for today? And just keep all my to-dos in one space. I'm also kind of still using the stickies on my laptop as a bit of a to-do list tracker that I can just quickly strike those things off. But I have been really enjoying using the paper, but as a checklist, not as like I'm going to do this in this lesson and this in this lesson, and then feel like I've got to go back and fill in things and whatever. So I am finding that handy. It's also got a checklists section in the back, which I've used to create some checklists for like repeated activities. Like if I need to plan an excursion, here's the process I need to go. And if I'm going to return an assessment task, here's the process I want to go through.
Oh my goodness.
Like make sure I've scanned in work samples and done this and blah, 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 and saved everything I need to save before I return the work back to my students.
I'm loving this. I am stealing this idea.
Yeah, so repeated things that you're doing all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I don't want to be thinking and using cognitive space to try and remember who am I meant to go to ask for permission about putting an event in the calendar before I book an excursion. Like, okay, that is a process that I'm going to need to come back to, but it's not really a routine that I do on a daily basis. So it's like hard to keep track of, but there's still a systematic approach that I have to follow. So I'm trying to create, I guess, little mini systems for myself in terms of whenever there's a repeated task, make a set checklist for it that you can come back to. So in some ways I've ditched the paper planner, but I've also kind of ditched all kinds of teacher planners. And I really just use my learning management system as my lesson planner. I use Google Classroom, and if I'm planning a lesson, I just put it straight into there, because why would I double handle into one space? It's the same as the PowerPoints. You know, you don't need to create the PowerPoint because your kids aren't really looking at it. I'm kind of the opposite. So Google Classroom more or less acts as my planner for me. And so if I'm making something, it goes in there. It's dated. It's everything that I need. It's also where the kids can submit their work, where I can review their work. It's just everything. So really, I'm just trying to capitalize on my LMS and not have additional planning tools as well. But I also always have a million things to do. So I'm really liking just the what are my to-dos for today checklist kind of planner technique.
Yeah.
I also really feel a lot less frazzled when I front end all my planning for a whole unit. So when I'm organized enough, and this is, I think, again, one of those things where like as teachers, we sometimes know that when something isn't working, we know that we could do it better, but you've got to have time to do it better.
Yeah.
And so in the past, I have had time to plan a really helpful booklet or a really helpful resource for my unit. I really like to do all my resourcing for my units at the time that I write the program. So when I've done that, I can feel how much easier that makes it for me walking into the classroom, especially when you're switching between subjects and age groups all day long. You know, you're going from year 7 to here. Now I'm walking into my year 11 class. I know I've got them. What exactly am I doing? Okay, I've got this booklet. We're literally just moving to the next page and we're working through what's next. And it's easy for me to have a quick flick, run my eyes over that at the start of the day and know exactly where I was heading without needing to do heaps of day-to-day planning. But I also know that fits my context really well, I guess in the same way that your context as a primary teacher lends you advantages for being able to do things in particular routine kind of ways. I feel like I don't have that, but as a subject that follows project-based learning, there's other advantages there where I know that if I've mapped out my project well at the start of the term, I can just sort of trust that I can walk into any room in any period and kind of know where it's going.
Yeah.
And what I'm doing. I also ditched recently a evaluation form that we had to do at the end of our units, but it was like so old and people have just kept like reattaching this same document to the end of all of our programs for our registers.
Yep.
But it's so like, it's got these little check boxes which are very clearly there for if you're printing out your registers and registering them by hand, like the old way, which no offense if you register your programs by hand, but I don't have time for that. So I usually use Adobe Fill and Sign.
Oh, I love that.
Because you can comment, you can tick, you can initial, and it's done. It's so good. But these stupid evaluation forms are just the clunkiest thing. So the other day I did a massive procrastination task where I redeveloped the evaluation form in Google Docs using like smart chips and drop downs and clickable things.
I love all of those things.
Oh, I felt so much more relaxed at the end.
And like, I didn't really need to do this, but I didn't want to do other stuff.
I didn't want to do other stuff. But that is one of those things that registers is one of the tasks that I find one of the most mentally taxing tasks that actually I know in theory doesn't take a lot of time, but I need a better system for how I do that because it's normally just let me do them all at the end of the year.
Literally.
I've forgotten a lot of things. But honestly, one of the biggest reasons that I put off doing them is because of those stupid evaluation forms. So I'm hoping that makes it just a little bit better. But yeah, I don't know, just... I think the biggest thing with my systems and routines is even though there's probably only a handful of them that I use consistently, the big thing is just like not pushing yourself to spend time doing things that aren't working for you. And just because your mentor teacher or your grade partner or your someone else does it a particular way, it doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. And it doesn't mean it has to be done that way. Like I'm sure I did things in my first year out of uni that was just because that's what everyone else is doing, so I will print out my registers and register them by hand without thinking about what other tools might I be proficient at that could make that faster and more efficient for me. Or I will get a paper planner because that's what everybody else uses, but maybe they were better at setting a routine for how to use that, and that's going against the grain of how I operate, and it's not actually helping.
Yeah, going back to how we love our jobs and want to be here for the long haul, if you are in a similar boat, we want things to be sustainable for years and years. And yeah, doing things just for the hell of it because you saw someone do it once is not sustainable. And we also then acknowledge that when do you get a moment to breathe and go, okay, now I'm going to spend some time, all this time reworking stuff. But this is when our beautiful friend AI comes in. And honestly, I have talked to ChatGPT about all the nooks and crannies in my classroom and gone, can you just give me an idea of how to organize this? And it's given me some things that I've loved, things that I've hated, but we do have that additional resource to hopefully save some time. I mean, obviously you have to veto everything as the human thinker in the room, but yeah, I think if you are friends with AI, there are lots of ways we can use it to, speed things along a bit. Even now, coming into my third year, I've had these same like rolling carts that are all across the interwebs of teacherdom.
Very teacher aesthetic.
Very, very primary school as well. I've got the rainbow ones. I have two types that neither of which I bought. Both were gifted to me by people at my school, which was so lovely. And that's possibly why I've struggled to get rid of them because they were, gifts. But I did part with... I have two of the traditional 10-drawer set, and I also had another set that was lower that had 3 double-sized trays and then 6 normal-sized trays on the other side. And I'm not explaining that very well, but anyway, so there were like 3 really deep trays and then 6 that were just normal on the other side, and never found a use for those. Gave them away to another teacher this year who really wanted them. So glad for that. But yeah, I'm still figuring out what to do with these gosh darn rolling carts, because I do like having them there for me to just go, oh, that's admin, chuck it in there. But it's not in a cupboard somewhere that I can't see it. Currently, I have one of my rolling carts right next to my desk, and I'm still figuring out what exactly I want to use it for, because some things have changed going to year 2. But it does help me really out of sight, out of mind. I have such object permanence issues that having stuff right there helps me go, oh, yeah, we did that thing in PD 3 weeks ago. That's really helpful. Now I know where it is. And I would like one for students because I've got 2, but I don't actually know if I really need it for students, because I already have a lot of other things in place. So potentially I might need to find another home for that one as well. But yes, I am. Look, we're in the name of sustainability, I am getting rid of those things that I would really love to have, but aren't actually working. And it's just doing a reality check and going, okay, do I dread walking into my room or rooms or spaces? And why is that? And for me, honestly, I dread not having a space for stuff and having to think on the fly every single time I encounter this problem because I haven't already planned for something. I want things in the moment to be automatic, because I'm not doing a lot of good thinking in the moment. I need to be problem solving and helping children who have bleeding noses and random stuff that happens to little people. I am just a lot better at thinking about things outside of the classroom and just going, okay, this happened. I don't want that to happen again. Where can I put these booklets that they're going to go to the same place every time, the kids know that, et cetera, et cetera. And that is what we mean by sustainability. Well, that's what I mean by sustainability.
Yeah, because if you make your day-to-day and your classroom operation functional for you and not just fitting the typical teacher aesthetic or whatever we think the teacher aesthetic is, then on like a micro level, when our classrooms and our days become more manageable, then teaching as a whole starts feeling more manageable long term.
We don't want to just be getting through every day. We want to be going, I've made it through this week and I didn't feel like crashing and burning on a Monday night.
Yeah. And some days it's like, wow, I barely made it through the day.
What a week, and it's Monday. But
yeah. But there are, I think, I often feel like guilty when I sort of procrastinate by spending time setting up, a bit of a system, or, when I do a good procrasticlean of my classroom or a procrasticlean of my Google Drive or whatever else. But you know what? I mean, I'm bad at choosing appropriate times to do those things. But at the same time, like, those things need to be done. And if we can dedicate some time to those sort of setting up those systems well, when we identify that it's costing us time in other places, then, I don't think that's time wasted at all.
No, you got to spend time to make time, which is what we always say at the beginning of kindergarten, when you feel like you teach zero content for pretty much the whole of term 1 and go, what have I done? But then they come back, they settle in for term 2, and you start learning, you start being able to teach stuff because they know how the classroom works.
Yeah, it's cool. Well, I'm sure that was quite a relatable experience for most teachers. I'm very interested to know who still operates in the paper planning world.
Yes, tell us how you do it.
Tell us if you do it. Not for us to boo your paper planner, but I'd just love to know how people
make it work
and are consistent with it. One of the things you will notice that is probably going to be slightly different about our episode content this year is that we are going to be focusing on a bit of a topic and then releasing a few episodes at a time on that topic. So stay tuned over the next couple of weeks. We are going to be doing a little bit of a more specific dive into some admin routines and some classroom routines to see how you can set yourself up for the year, and not just the year, but beyond that, to build a more sustainable workload and approach to teaching for yourself. And I think, if we can find ways to set ourselves up well moving forward, then we're going to help each other stay in it for the long run.
Exactly, because we want to keep loving this job. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this episode with us. And yes, like Sarah said, stay tuned for more thematically related topics, which will be of a shorter nature. Yeah, and let us know how you feel about this new format. We're hoping it will be more sustainable for us, but also enjoyable for you. And find us on all the social medias. As we always say, we are Teaching Together, the podcast, on pretty much all the social platforms. And speaking of, one of our grows as a podcast team is to reach more people and to engage with you, because we want to create a community where we can share our experience and commiserate sometimes, but also share the joys. Like we say at the beginning of every episode, we want to share the glows and grows of teacher life. So please comment on Instagram or send us something on Facebook, and we will endeavour to engage in a collegiate conversation with you, because that is what we want to do. We want to talk to like-minded teachers. And that is the end of that. So hopefully we will see you next time. But for now, bye.